You've pretty much played with everybody, haven't you?
I know.
I'm counting 3 of the 4 Beatles, or did you get to play with John at all?
No.
Okay.
The closest I got to John was I attended his press conference for Peace in Toronto.
In the hotel bedroom?
No, not when he recorded Give Peace a Chance. That was Montreal, but in Toronto, at the Ontario Science Centre. He and Yoko. I mean, and they were, and they walked the earth.
Really?
It was like Jesus and Mary. At the set, he was going to do some Honey Drippers, and I played a few tunes, and then Jimmy Page came on.
Yeah.
And when that happened, the crowd saw Jimmy Page and Robert Plant on the same stage. It was elevated like this. You heard this roar all the time that Jimmy Page was on. Well, I guess because there was no real bizarre story off it except the experience of playing for an entire audience that was on acid. What that was like.
And what was...
Way different, that's all I can say. I remember I stopped, the first number ended, pow, and there would always be a reaction, and then I would, like a theatrical conductor, wait for the audience to come down about half, and then count off the second number. Well, the audience was up here, ooh, kind of a purple roar, ooh, and it never subsided.
Right.
So I just had to say, all right, and I just counted off anyway. He had a rock and roll experience as a kid, and he knew how to deliver a song, for sure. But he just, his instrument wasn't that of a, of a blues singer, of a great blues singer. Let's put it that way. He was a great performer, a great comic. He didn't have a, he really didn't claim to be a singer, although there were times when, the Blues Brothers experience was so exciting that he must have said to himself, I must be a singer. If I can do this, who could blame him?
Right.
But really, he knew he was a comic performer, putting his all into these songs for sure. And when Belushi did that, when he put his all into something, he really was an incredible performer. Kaufman did a character, Tony Clifton, the sleazy, old-time nightclub guy. And he would do it, because he was a performance artist. He was booked on the show 2 nights in a row. The first night he would appear as Andy Kaufman himself. The second night for the whole, we were aware he was going to come in made up as Tony Clifton and in character as Tony Clifton. And we would treat him as if he were a second person. So, there's this big build-up. Andy does the show. The first night as himself, I knew him a little from Saturday Night Live, and I explained in the book about how I was there the first time he did that bizarre and subtle bit of Here I Come to Save the Day, it broke him wide open on that first episode, I think, of SNL. But he says to me, and I don't know him that well, and he says, Tony's coming tomorrow, and you better be on your toes. He doesn't like a band and accompanist who doesn't, can't keep up with him. And with all due respect, this is what I have been doing all my life, really dealing with the lounge lizards. I said, don't worry, I can handle Tony. So the next day it's time, and I hate rehearsing with a character anyway. I just I never have liked it. Let's rehearse. Now we're backstage. Let's just rehearse, you and me, and then get into camp. But, so I hate having put upon that way. But nonetheless, I'm rehearsing with Tony Clifton, the character. And, of course, I'm keeping up with him totally, whatever he wants, even though he's not that musical even. But I can, I've also spent my whole life doing music for comics and people that aren't necessarily, like Belushi. I realized that, he's kind of a sweet guy. There's an undercurrent to the character that he's doing of a guy who's been trodden upon, never had any success in the clubs, never got out of the clubs, but he's got a sentimental side to him. And I liked it, and I realized I liked working with Tony Clifton maybe more than Andy Kaufman. Nonetheless, Andy does the second show as Tony, and I never thought about it again. And then he died, of course, sadly, and then I picked up Bob Zmuda's book about him. Bob Zmuda was his manager and a sort of confidant. He wrote a book about Andy. I pick it up and he says, sometimes I was Tony. I would put the makeup on and come, like on the Letterman show. It was me. It wasn't Andy, it was Tony.
Right. Who would you say was your favorite group to play with?
James Brown, hands down. Every time was a music lesson. He was so interesting. He was such a legend and a legendary force in funk, and in fact, I believe invented dance music as we know it today. Once he laid down the funk, that became, I believe, the template for what we're dancing to today.